Howdy y'all, got the Bulldog on the channel. I'm going to show you the proper way to set the lash, the gear lash on this starter here. I just did a video on the shims that come with the starter and how they, didn't fit. Well, I'm going to show you what to do and how to shim up this starter. It's a Chevrolet. There's the same, all V8 engines have the same lash. They have basically the same setup, just differences in shims and the like. I'll show you here. Here's the starter. I got it bolted up in place. I didn't crank it down, but it's not loose. It's more than snug. Now you take your shim here and you put it on. It's best to do this with this off, the dust cover. It adds time, that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. But you put it on the edge of the ring gear and reach up through there, and you feel how much slack do you have. This has to fit in there. If it doesn't fit in there, it's too close. Try to get to work. Very light. But you reach in there and you're measuring between the outside of this gear and the shaft of the starter. And is this, yeah, it's decent. It can probably live, but it does have some space in there. That could cause premature wear on this. Now if it was too tight, that's easy. You just put shims underneath of it. And I had brought under some shims. Until I found out that everything was a difference. There we go. Shims for this style of starter with the offset bolts. They sent the straight ones. But this one is actually too loose, because you saw me moving that thing around in there. Well, how do you shim that and make it closer? Because a shim's going to bring it down and get it further away, right? Well, what you do is you take a shim and you cut the bolt hole off, the outside bolt hole, and you put it underneath the outside bolt on the starter. And that tilts the starter just a freckle and brings that shaft closer. So I'm going to do that right now. I don't know where you're pointing, but bear with me. You loosen the inside bolt, and if you're putting in a shim, you also just loosen the inside bolt because it's got this slot in it. And you take out the outside bolt. Take your shim, slide it on top there, and feed your bolt through it. It's fun. You can't see what you're doing, there's wires in the way. There we go. Now since I've got the transmission out, it was easy for me to have this dust cover off. A lot of times you got to drop the exhaust in order to get the dust cover out. Snug. Snug. Now I'm going to double check this measurement. Yeah, I think I can go one more. They used to make different thickness of shims. They don't anymore. You just keep stacking the thin ones. Used to be, you had one thick shim, and they would always machine it to where you had to shim it. because it's easier to put in a full shim. This is kind of difficult. It's a headache. But better than trashing your starter ring. Fall over. I don't need light. How about that? Snug. Snug. Now I'm going to measure again. All right. I've got it to where the shim doesn't rub, but it barely moves. You don't want it too tight. You don't want it to where you have to shove this thing in there. But you need it where the teeth are going to have a full engagement. Now, the wear on that old ring gear was fairly deep. But that starter was new. So, and there were still teeth left at the place that it was slipping. So I think what happened is, this is the same brand starter, so it's probably made the same way. The Bendix was bad in the other starter, damaged the ring gear a little bit. They put another starter on it, which was shimmed, or which was machined incorrectly, way too far away, and it started slipping. Because there were still teeth left, enough to crank. And what I did when I pulled the starter off and saw that, I just took a pry bar up there and rotated the motor a little bit. And I got in and started the truck so we could pull it over here into place where it's out of the way. And it almost spun out. These engines have to make 2 full revolutions before they'll start. One to index the crank and tell the computer where number 1 is. And then, as it cranks around again, that's when it starts to fire. So it has to crank past that place twice. And I heard it. I mean, it was bad, even when it was cranking fully. So this is something that it's getting to be a lost art, but you need to know how to do it. I wish things fit better, but they don't. So like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it around. We'll talk to you later.